Ladies and gentlemen, and especially those of you who are seniors, if you use a debit card regularly, I need your full attention right now. A troubling scam is sweeping across the country, and it's quietly draining money from everyday people just like you. It's known as the double charge scheme, and while it may sound simple, it can end up costing you hundreds, even thousands of dollars before you even realize something is wrong. That's why I urge you to stay with me through this entire message. I'm going to break down exactly what this scam looks like, how you can recognize it on your bank statement, and most importantly, the steps you can take to protect yourself and your hard-earned money. But first, before we dive into the details, do me a favor, hit that like button, subscribe if you haven't already, and share in the comments if you've ever spotted an unusual or extra charge on your debit card bill. The reason this scheme is so effective is because of its simplicity. Here's what usually happens. You're going about your day, buying groceries, paying for gas, or maybe picking up a prescription. You swipe or tap your card, the machine beeps, and you walk away with your receipt, assuming the transaction is finished. But behind the scenes, something else happens. A second charge is slipped in. That second charge might be created by a compromised payment terminal, a dishonest cashier, or even a hidden piece of software that pushes your transaction through twice. Sometimes the amounts are exact duplicates. If you spent $22 on groceries, you'll see another $22 deducted right below it. Other times, the scammer changes the amount slightly, $19.99 or $21.50 instead of $22, to make it look like a totally separate purchase. The trick works because most people don't remember the exact amount they spent on small, everyday purchases. A few dollars here and there don't raise red flags in our memory, and scammers know that. That's what makes this scheme so dangerous. It hides in plain sight. And to make matters worse, banks often don't detect this type of fraud because the charges appear legitimate. They're not happening across the world, they're not massive purchases, and they don't look suspicious on the surface. Instead, it looks like you just bought something else at a store you already trust. This combination of invisibility and believability is why the scam is spreading so quickly. For criminals, it's low risk. For seniors and unsuspecting consumers, it's high cost. Now let's talk about why this scam hits older adults harder than anyone else. Many seniors rely almost entirely on debit cards for daily spending. They feel safer than carrying large amounts of cash, and unlike credit cards, they don't come with monthly debt or interest charges, just straightforward access to the money in the bank. But that simplicity is exactly what makes debit cards vulnerable. When a fraudulent charge hits your debit card, the money is gone instantly. It isn't pending. It doesn't wait for approval. It leaves your account the second it's processed. And for seniors who live on fixed incomes or carefully budget every expense, even small amounts disappearing can cause serious problems. Imagine planning for rent, groceries, and medication, only to find your account unexpectedly short because someone skimmed $20 here and $40 there. One missing payment can snowball into overdraft fees, late charges, or even bounced bill payments. The second issue is timing. Many older adults don't check their accounts every day. Some rely on paper statements that arrive just once a month. Others may not feel comfortable using online banking apps or mobile alerts. That means by the time these fraudulent charges are noticed, weeks may have already passed. At that point, the scammer has long moved on, leaving the victim in a stressful fight to recover their money. And unlike credit cards, which typically come with strong fraud protection policies, debit card users often face a tougher road. You may be required to prove that you didn't authorize the transactions, and the investigation process can feel confusing and intimidating. In short, the scam doesn't just steal your money. It undermines your sense of financial stability and creates stress in an area of life where peace of mind is so important. To show you how this plays out in the real world, let me share a couple of true examples. A woman in her 70s, who had been using the same neighborhood pharmacy for years, noticed a $9.85 charge on her account. She assumed it was just a refill she had forgotten. The following month, the exact same amount appeared again. By the third month, she realized something was wrong. After an investigation, it was discovered that the payment system had been compromised by criminals who were running duplicate charges that looked completely ordinary. By the time she figured it out, nearly $120 had been drained from her account. In another case, a man filled up his car at the gas station. His receipt showed $45 for fuel, which sounded right. But when he later checked his statement, there was another $43 charge from the exact same gas station on the exact same day. At first, he thought he might have accidentally swiped twice. But when it happened again the following week, he realized he was being scammed. In just 2 months, he lost more than $400. What's especially troubling about these examples is that neither of these victims was careless. They weren't tricked into giving away their PIN, they weren't falling for phishing calls, and they weren't ignoring obvious red flags. They were simply making everyday purchases the way we all do, trusting that the system was safe. The scam took advantage of that trust, blending fraud into routine life so seamlessly that it became almost invisible. And it's that very invisibility that gives this scam the power to spread so quickly and quietly. Now that you understand how the double charge scam operates, and why it can be so damaging, the next step is learning how to identify it before it drains your money. Most victims only notice it either by accident or when the charges grow large enough to trigger panic. But relying on luck is never a good defense. What you need is awareness, clear red flags that you can recognize the moment they appear. The most obvious clue is duplicate charges from the same place, often on the very same day. Let's say you head to the grocery store in the morning and spend $65 on your weekly shopping. You expect to see one $65 transaction on your statement. But if there are 2 identical charges, especially just minutes apart, that's not coincidence. That's a signal something isn't right. Too many people brush this off, assuming they accidentally swiped their card twice or that the machine glitched. Never assume. Even one duplicate charge is worth questioning. Another warning sign is charges that are nearly, but not exactly, the same as what you spent. Picture this. You grab coffee and snacks for $18, but your bank statement shows one $18 charge and another for $17.25. That second amount looks close enough that you might not question it, and scammers know this. They deliberately use numbers that feel familiar but are slightly altered, exploiting the fact that most of us don't remember small purchases down to the exact penny. A third red flag is tiny recurring charges that show up again and again, month after month. Maybe it's $9.99 or $12.50. Small enough that it doesn't stand out, small enough that you shrug it off as some subscription you forgot about. Fraudsters love this tactic because it hides in plain sight. And for seniors especially, it's easy to assume, oh, maybe I signed up for something and don't remember. But here's the truth, those little amounts add up. Over time, what seems like harmless pocket change turns into hundreds of stolen dollars. Finally, pay close attention to charges from places you only visited once. If you filled up at a gas station while traveling months ago and suddenly see another charge from that same station, don't dismiss it. That's not a mistake, it's fraud. The biggest trap seniors fall into is blaming themselves. They think, I must have forgotten making that purchase, or maybe I swiped my card wrong. But scammers count on that doubt. They thrive on hesitation. If something doesn't look right, take it as a red flag, not as your own mistake. Now let's turn to the most important part, how you can keep this scam from touching your money in the first place. Protecting yourself isn't about being paranoid. It's about building simple, consistent habits that make you harder to target. The first and most powerful habit is checking your bank activity often. Don't wait for that monthly paper statement to arrive. Get in the routine of checking at least once a week, if not every day. It only takes a few minutes, but those few minutes can save you hundreds of dollars. Think of it like brushing your teeth, a small, regular practice that prevents bigger problems later. The second tool is enabling transaction alerts. Most banks now offer free text or email notifications every time your card is used. Set them to notify you for every purchase, not just the large ones. Remember, scammers thrive on small, unnoticed charges. If you get an alert each time your card is used, a duplicate or suspicious transaction becomes impossible to miss. Third, whenever possible, use a credit card instead of a debit card. I know many seniors prefer debit because it feels more straightforward. You spend what you have, no bills later. But the truth is, credit cards come with stronger legal protections. If a scammer double charges your credit card, you usually aren't liable for the amount. With debit, it's your own bank account being emptied, and your money vanishes instantly. As long as you're disciplined about paying your balance in full each month, credit is simply safer. Another smart step is to keep your receipts, at least for a short time. It may feel old-fashioned, but keeping them in an envelope or folder for a week or two gives you a backup record. If you see two $35 pharmacy charges on your statement, your receipt proves you only spent it once. Without that proof, it becomes harder to challenge the fraud. Also, don't hesitate to ask for help from a trusted family member or friend. Sometimes pride stops us from letting others look at our finances, but an extra set of eyes can be invaluable. A quick review of your statement once a month with a son, daughter, or close friend can catch what you might miss, and save you from unnecessary stress. If you ever do spot something suspicious, the golden rule is this: act fast. Don't wait until tomorrow. Don't put it off until the weekend. Call your bank immediately. The faster you report it, the better your chances of getting the charge reversed and stopping further losses. And remember, you're not overreacting. It's your money, and you have every right to protect it. Finally, consider using separate accounts for safety. Keep one account for your main savings and automatic bill payments, and a second, smaller account linked to your debit card for everyday purchases. That way, even if scammers do manage to sneak in a charge, the amount they can steal is limited. It's like keeping most of your valuables in a locked safe and only carrying a little cash in your wallet. The double charge scam works because it hides in the ordinary flow of daily life. But once you build these habits, checking, tracking, questioning, you bring light into those shadows. And when the shadows are gone, the scam can't survive.